Brazil, the country full of joy, togetherness, carnivals, its glorious Copacabana beach and its skillful footballers. Who would have thought they would be involved in what many have said is the biggest corruption scandal in the world? At 2014, the Federal Republic of Brazil, the largest country in both South and Latin America, was looking in a healthy position. They had the 7th highest GDP, a population of just under 203 million people, and an unemployment rate of less than 7%. However, this soon changed. In March 2014, a mundane police inquiry into a small-scale money laundering operation in the country's capital, Brasilia, uncovered a bigger corruption, later labelled Operation Car Wash. It was known that 48 current and former legislators and 3 Brazilian presidents were investigated, with 18 companies and at least 11 countries being involved in the scandal. So what actually happened? At the heart of the scandal is Brazilian state-owned oil company Petrobras and a gigantic Latin American construction company, Odebrecht. Petrobras was founded in October of 1953 under the governance of Brazilian President Vargas and was granted as a legal monopoly. In 2000, Petrobras reached a world record for deep water oil exploration, reaching a depth of over 6,000 feet below sea level. However, with the good came the bad. Their corporate structure was very weak, and there was no code of ethics, a common practice in the UK, allowing individuals to use business for personal gain and corruption to manifest. Odebrecht was founded in the 1940s by Norberto Odebrecht, a Brazilian entrepreneur with German engineering heritage. Having originated as a small family business, it grew quickly, and at its peak in around 2010, the company had 181,000 employees across 21 countries. At this time, Odebrecht became huge, participating in large building projects such as Caracas Metro, a port in Cuba, and much of the infrastructure used by Brazil in the 2014 World Cup. However, it seemed Odebrecht became power-hungry. Petrobras awarded building contracts to Odebrecht and 15 other smaller Brazilian companies involved in the contract rigging. They decided themselves who got the wildly inflated price contracts. Then these companies would overcharge on the true cost of the work, with Petrobras officials receiving a cut of the inflated contracts and turning a blind eye to the corruption. The extra money from the contracts would be siphoned off into a joint reserve fund, accumulating millions of dollars. Money was then laundered through small businesses such as car washes and petrol stations, and it was used as an important funding source for political re-election campaigns and to bribe politicians. Payments were made in fine wines, sports cars, yachts and art. Police discovered the flow of money going to politicians at the very top of the system, eventually leading to many arrests. Odebrecht went on to sign a leniency deal with authorities in the US and Switzerland, and the combined fines for Petrobras and Odebrecht were somewhere close to $3.4 billion, the largest penalty given by global authorities for bribery.
Sergio Moro is a law professor turned federal judge who gained national attention in 2014, becoming one of the head judges in Operation Car Wash. The Brazilian people thought highly of Moro as he acted outside of the norm for corruption investigations, making fast pace on inquiries of suspects. On this basis, he became a national hero and was even being called to run for presidency by the public. Moro called the investigation a great achievement for Brazilian democracy, reducing corruption in the future and allowing the economy to thrive. Marcelo Odebrecht, grandson of founder Norberto, joined Odebrecht in 1992, being appointed CEO 16 years later in 2008. Marcelo was investigated as a key figure in the discovered scandal, later going on to be labelled one of the masterminds behind the operation. Marcelo paid over $30 million in bribery to officials at Petrobras in exchange for building contracts, and stated that part of the $48 million he donated to Rousseff and Temer's campaign in the 2014 Brazilian presidential election was illegal. Marcelo's actions represent an extreme form of ethical egoism. Lula was Brazil's 35th president and once called the most popular politician in the world by former American President Barack Obama. Lula was also named as one of the masterminds behind the scheme and was found guilty of giving a beachfront apartment for helping win contracts with Petrobras and accepting bribes of $1.2 million. Petrobras also offered executive posts to Lula's political allies to help build support networks and gain more influence on Brazil's politics. Dilma Rousseff was the 36th and the first female president of Brazil. Her reign lasted from 2011 till 2016 when she was removed from the office for impeachment. There is no evidence directly linking her to the scandal, however it is assumed that she must have known about it as she was a former chief of staff at the height of the wrongdoing. Plus, many of her confidants ended up arrested or were on trial. Whether she was aware of what was going on or not, she benefited from the illegal funds and failed to halt the corruption. Rousseff was eventually impeached and thrown out of office because she window-dressed government accounts by filling holes in with loans from state banks that did not have congressional approval. Michel Temer was a Brazilian lawyer and politician who served as the 37th president of Brazil, taking office after the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff. He was almost as despised as his predecessor after helping lead the campaign to bring down Rousseff, then naming an all-male, all-white cabinet and losing 3 ministers to the Lava Jato scandal in his first month in office. He was surrounded by politicians implicated in the corruption scandal and, as leader of Brazil's biggest party, he too benefited from dubiously acquired campaign financing, being reported that he received a $1 million bribe in exchange for awarding 3 companies a construction contract for a nuclear facility.
So, was anyone else involved? Ike Batista, a Brazilian business tycoon who was once the richest man in Brazil. Batista was found to have been paying more than $16 million in bribery to secure public contracts. However, he did go on to deny any wrongdoings and eventually promised to help authorities tackle corruption, which he claimed to be widespread in Brazil. Next, known money launderer Alberto Yusuf and Paulo Roberto Costa, former head of refining at Petrobras. In 2012, the police tapped phones of a money transfer business and discovered Yusuf giving Costa a conspicuous gift, a Range Rover worth more than $100,000. They were both arrested in 2014 and the police caught Costa trying to destroy evidence. Judge Moro made the decision to keep both Yusuf and Costa in jail before their trials, which was unheard of in Brazil for the rich and powerful. However, Moro used these detentions to employ a fairly new legal innovation in Brazil. This was plea deals. Both entered plea bargains within 6 months and cooperated with prosecutors. Yusuf testified he was laundering for top executives at Petrobras. This was a massive turning point in investigations and for governance in Brazil. So, how did the scandal affect the people of Brazil? Brazil suffered, with lost Petrobras contracts counting towards 500,000 people unemployed. The cost of the scandal to the Brazilian treasury was 8 times higher than the sum stolen, enough to educate 17 million children. On a scale of 1 to 10, it is felt to many Brazilians like 11. Brazil basically entered one of their greatest recessions. The main villains of the car wash scandal barely suffered from their actions or were released shortly after being imprisoned to carry out the rest of their sentences in their luxury homes, while the rest of the nation was left to suffer with the after effects. There was some benefit though, as in 2014 the Clean Company Act was introduced in Brazil to tackle corruption. That was a way to uplift corporate governance and to serve punishments to companies. Pedro Parente, Petrobras' new CEO, had changed the company's fortunes in terms of governance, integrity and compliance. Finally, there's the analysis of the scandal using Kant's categorical imperative. Kant essentially focuses on humans using their own intellect to morally know what is right and wrong, and regardless of our desires, we're obliged to act accordingly based on this reasoning. This would therefore suggest that Marcelo Odebrecht would have known offering bribes is morally wrong and unethical. Petrobras executives and Brazilian presidents would have known accepting these bribes wasn't an obligation under pure reasoning. Furthermore, if you focus on the universalizability principle, it would suggest Lula, as president of Brazil, should have acted according to Brazil's maxims and demonstrated universal law and rejected the bribes and blown the scandal up into the public eye without any contradiction. However, Lula chose not to, seriously emphasising that based on Kant's categorical imperatives, this behaviour was unethical and self-serving. Finally, if you focus on the formula of humanity principle, Lula, Temer, Rousseff all used their political power as a mere means, acting outside of Kant's categorical imperatives, allowing the nation to struggle for their own benefit, which is hugely unethical. This suggests to me that there was not enough corporate governance and law in place, as these individuals did not feel the moral law binding on them and were able to act in unethical ways out of line of Kant's philosophies.